They didn't whisper it. They said it openly. On television, in locker rooms, in pregame shows that played on repeat all week. Dallas was better, better roster, bigger stars, more power, more confidence. And standing at the center of it all was their golden standard. The quarterback everyone said represented the future of the league. Strong arm, commanding presence, a system built to dominate. Across the field stood a man who didn't look like the future at all. Joe Montana. Joe Montana wasn't loud. He didn't gesture wildly. He didn't need the cameras. He just waited. The stadium that night felt different. Not hostile, not friendly, judgmental. As if it had already decided which team deserved to win, and was simply waiting for reality to catch up. The Dallas Cowboys jogged onto the field first, helmets shining under the lights, body language relaxed, almost casual. This was familiar territory for them. Big games, big moments, big expectations. They thrived on it. The San Francisco 49ers followed. Quieter, more contained. No theatrics, no extra movement, just business. And at the back of the group, Montana adjusted his chin strap and looked out at the field like a man studying weather, not opponents. That difference mattered, because this rivalry was never about talent alone. It was about belief. Dallas believed dominance came from force, from speed, from imposing your will early. Montana believed dominance came later. The first quarter played exactly how the experts predicted. Dallas moved the ball with confidence, short completions, strong runs. Their quarterback stood tall in the pocket, delivering passes with authority, feeding off the crowd's reaction. Every successful play reinforced the same message. This is our game. On the sideline, analysts nodded. This was the script. Montana's offense responded, but not explosively. Short throws, conservative movement, drives that stalled just often enough to look unimpressive. Cameras caught the Dallas sideline smiling. They had seen this before. Teams that tried to survive them instead of challenge them. The second quarter deepened that impression. Dallas scored again. The gap widened. The noise grew louder. A defensive captain leaned toward his teammates and said, "Just keep hitting him, he'll break." They believed that. They believed pressure was cumulative, that eventually the quiet man would feel it. But Montana didn't speed up, didn't change cadence, didn't force throws. He absorbed the moment instead of fighting it. By halftime, the numbers favored Dallas. So did the narrative. In the locker room, the Cowboys were energized, not reckless, but certain. Coaches emphasized discipline, not urgency. "Keep doing what we're doing," they said. "They'll run out of time." Across the hall, the 49ers locker room was calm to the point of unsettling. No shouting, no speeches. Montana sat on the bench, helmet off, sipping water, listening. A young receiver finally broke the silence. "We're still in this." Montana looked up and nodded. Not reassurance, confirmation. The third quarter began with Dallas pressing harder. They sensed the kill was near. Blitzes came faster. Coverage tightened. They wanted to suffocate the game. Montana took the hits, got up slowly, never complained. Every sack, every pressure, every incomplete pass convinced Dallas they were winning the psychological battle. That was the mistake, because Montana wasn't measuring the game the way they were. He wasn't counting yards. He wasn't watching the clock obsessively. He was watching them. He noticed when a linebacker started leaning forward before the snap, when a safety hesitated just a fraction longer than before, when confidence quietly shifted into impatience. Late in the third quarter, Montana completed a pass that didn't change the score, but changed the temperature. It wasn't flashy. A tight throw over the middle, released just before contact, caught cleanly. The Dallas defense reset quickly, but something subtle happened. They stopped celebrating small wins. The fourth quarter arrived with Dallas still ahead, and the crowd still convinced. This was their game to lose. The Cowboys quarterback stood on the sideline, helmet on, eyes locked on the field. He had done his part, led drives, managed the offense, delivered when needed. Now it was on the defense. They would finish this. Montana took the field again, trailing, with time running out. This was the moment Dallas had prepared for. This was when quarterbacks made mistakes. They tightened coverage, called aggressive looks, dared him to force something. Montana looked back at the huddle. 11 faces, tired, focused. He spoke calmly. No volume, no urgency, just the play. And as they broke the huddle, the Cowboys' defense saw something they didn't expect. No panic, no rush, just a quarterback who looked comfortable. The drive started quietly. A completion, a short run, another completion. The chains moved. The crowd's noise shifted, not louder, not softer, but uncertain. On the Dallas sideline, a coach frowned. "We need a stop, now." The next snap came, and Montana stepped into it. The next snap came, and it felt like Dallas finally got what they wanted. Pressure, real pressure. A defender knifed through the line and reached for Montana's waist like he was grabbing for the end of the game itself. The Cowboys' sideline surged forward, ready for the sack, ready for the exhale, ready to tell themselves the story they'd rehearsed all week. We break quarterbacks, that's what we do. Montana slid half a step, not backwards, sideways, just enough to make the tackle miss by inches. He didn't spin dramatically. He didn't sprint. He simply moved like someone walking around a chair that was in his way. And then he threw a short pass, precise, on time. First down. The Dallas defender slapped the turf in frustration, not because he missed, because he realized something worse. Montana was not escaping. He was choosing. That's when the rivalry stopped being abstract, stopped being teams and schemes and headlines. It became two identities colliding. Dallas's identity was force. They believed the game belonged to the strongest unit, the loudest sideline, the most confident star, and their star, the future, the golden boy everyone pointed to, stood there watching, helmet on, jaw tight. He could feel the momentum pulling away from him, like a rope being cut strand by strand. Montana didn't look at him. That was the insult. He didn't acknowledge the rivalry as a rivalry. He treated it like a math problem. The drive continued. Montana completed another pass into a tight window. The receiver popped up immediately, handed the ball to the official, and sprinted back to the line. Dallas defenders argued pre-snap, just for a second, just one hand gesture, one miscommunication. Montana saw it. He changed the play. The ball snapped. Quick throw. Another first down. Now the Cowboys' defense was no longer hunting. They were reacting, and reaction is where great defenses die. On the sideline, Dallas's quarterback paced in a small circle, not to warm up, but to burn off something he couldn't name. He had done everything right. The plan was working. They were supposed to close this out. That was the contract of a dominant team. Yet the field was starting to feel like it belonged to Montana. A Cowboys linebacker approached the sideline and yelled, "We need help. He's reading everything." The coordinator shouted back, "Stick to the call." That exchange lasted 2 seconds, but it said everything. Dallas was trying to keep control through discipline. Montana was taking control through inevitability. The next play was the first crack in the armor. Dallas sent a blitz, heavy and confident, a statement blitz. They wanted Montana to feel it. They wanted him to rush. They wanted him to make the heroic mistake. Montana dropped back, saw it instantly, and released the ball before the defenders even reached full speed. A slant, perfect timing, catch, turn, extra yards. The crowd gasped, not because of the yards, but because of the ease. It looked too simple for a rivalry game, too clean for a moment this heavy. A defensive back stood over the receiver and barked something, more frustration than intimidation. Montana didn't even glance their way. He clapped once, calm, already calling the next snap, and that was when Dallas's best player on defense, its emotional engine, made the fatal choice. Instead of trusting the system, he tried to end it himself. On the next snap, he abandoned his assignment for a split second, lunging toward the backfield like the hero in a movie. He wanted the sack. He wanted the highlight. He wanted the story to be about Dallas again. Montana sensed it. He didn't panic. He didn't scramble. He waited. That single beat of patience was violent in its own way. Then he threw to the space the defender had just abandoned. Big gain. The Cowboys' sideline erupted, not in celebration, but in anger. Coaches shouted. Arms waved. Players pointed. They could feel the game slipping, and nothing makes a strong team more emotional than losing control in public. Now the drive had teeth. Montana moved them into scoring range, and the stadium's sound began to fracture. The cheers were no longer confident. They were pleading. One more stop. One mistake. One dropped pass. Dallas's quarterback watched the field like a man watching his own reflection distort, because this wasn't supposed to happen to them. Not like this. Not against a quarterback who refused to give them the emotional fight they fed on. Montana called another play. Snap. A completion near the sideline. Toe tap. Clock stops. The Cowboys' defensive captain walked toward Montana between plays and stared at him, trying to project force. Montana looked back, expression neutral as if the stare was a weather report. No reply. No escalation. Just another play call. That was the humiliating part. The quiet part. The part that makes rivalries personal. Dallas wanted Montana to respect them enough to feel pressure. He didn't. He treated their greatest weapons, speed, power, aggression, as predictable inputs. And now, with the ball near the red zone, the Cowboys' star quarterback wasn't just watching a drive. He was watching his identity get challenged. Because if Montana finished this, it wouldn't just be a loss. It would be a statement. You can have the better roster. You can have the louder stadium. You can have the bigger star. But none of it matters if the other quarterback owns the final minutes. Dallas called a timeout. The defense huddled tight, helmets nearly touching, voices sharp. The coordinator pointed, shouted, demanded discipline. The players nodded. But when they broke the huddle, their body language said something else. They were tense. They were trying not to lose. And Montana, standing across from them, looked like he was about to start his day. He approached the line, scanned the defense, then said something quietly to his receiver.
The receiver nodded once, the ball snapped, and in that instant, Dallas realized the worst truth in football. They weren't defending against a play. They were defending against a man who had been here before and didn't feel anything. The clock slipped under 30 seconds, and for the first time all night, Dallas looked unsure, not confused, not outmatched, uncertain. The Cowboys' defense lined up tight, shoulders rigid, eyes fixed on Joe Montana. This was the situation they were built for. The moment their physicality, their discipline, their confidence was supposed to end the story. But something had shifted. Montana stepped behind center and took his time. No hurry, no urgency. He scanned the field slowly, deliberately, like a man confirming what he already knew. Dallas felt it. They were no longer defending a play. They were defending inevitability. The snap came. Pressure collapsed immediately. A defender broke free, arms extended, convinced this was the moment. The sack, the mistake, the release of tension. Montana slid forward, not away, not panicked, just enough. Then he threw. The ball cut through the air on a flat line, threading a space that existed only because a Dallas defender had lunged a half-second too early. The completion moved the chains and stopped the clock. On the sideline, helmets slammed into benches. Coaches shouted instructions that arrived too late. The Cowboys' quarterback stood still now, helmet in hand, watching the field with an expression that had nothing to do with anger. He was watching understanding arrive, because this wasn't about schemes anymore. It wasn't about preparation. It was about who could live inside pressure without being changed by it. Montana called the next play quickly. No discussion, no drama. The Cowboys hurried to a line. A safety pointed. A linebacker shook his head. Communication fractured just enough. The ball was snapped. Play action. The defense bit hard. For a split second, the field opened like a door that shouldn't exist. A receiver slipped free in the end zone. Montana released the ball high and calm, placing it where only one outcome was possible. The catch. Touchdown. There was a brief, unreal silence. Then the stadium erupted. Half in shock, half in disbelief. Montana jogged off the field without celebration. Helmet still on. Expression unchanged. As if this drive had simply confirmed what he'd already accepted. On the Cowboys' sideline, no one spoke. The defense stared at the field. The quarterback sat down slowly, helmet resting on his knees. They hadn't been beaten by force. They had been finished by patience. The final seconds drained away, but the game had already ended. Not on the scoreboard, but in the minds of everyone watching. Afterward, reporters asked the same questions they always asked. How did you stay so calm? Did you feel the pressure? What does it mean to beat Dallas like this? Montana answered quietly, "We just ran our offense." That answer disappointed people. There was no drama in it, no mythology. But that was the point. Dallas had the stronger roster, the louder stadium, the more imposing presence. Montana had something else. He remained unchanged while everything around him demanded panic. That is why this rivalry lingered, why it stayed personal, why Dallas, for all its power, never quite felt comfortable when Montana was on the other sideline. Because strength can be challenged, speed can be matched, talent can be neutralized, but calm, true calm, has no counter. That night, Dallas had the better team. Joe Montana had the ending. And in football, that's the only thing that lasts.